Good morning and happy Vlogmas day 16. So today I thought I would do a little something fun. It is a year-end review Q&A type thing, and I've never done a Q&A type thing, so I thought it would just be fun to kind of recap 2019 and just kind of sum it up before we wrap up the year. So without further ado, we'll get into the questions. So the first one is one word to describe the year. So I guess if I had to use one word to describe 2019, it would have to be chaos. Because we moved down to Fort Myers, Florida at the end of 2018 to be close to Ryan and Teresa and the babies. And in December of 2018, Ryan and Teresa decided that they didn't really like Florida, and they were expecting another baby, my first grandson, and they had decided to come back to Georgia. So 2019 started off really kind of on a sad note because they left about mid-January. So that was sad, but Henry and I, we had planned and we had intended that we were going to stay in Florida for a couple of years. But in August, an opportunity presented itself whereby we would have a chance to, when our lease was up, come back to Georgia. So Henry didn't even hesitate. He didn't even have to think it through. In August, he was here in Georgia, and I actually stayed in Florida by myself for a couple of months and didn't come up to Georgia until October because our lease didn't end until October 31st. So, and as we're rounding out and ending the year, the position or the situation that presented itself to us is we're actually staying with family until we find a house. The cost of living in Florida was so high that now we have to save money, you know, to get moved into something else. And so with all of that, the big changes with Ryan and them leaving, and then us unexpectedly leaving Florida, and now, you know, we're staying with family, so we kind of like don't have that, like we don't have our own space, like, you know, we don't have our own things. Everything we own is in storage. So I would definitely have to say one word for 2019 is chaos. Number two, the best thing you did for someone else this year. Honestly, I'm gonna say, at the risk of hurting anyone's feelings, I'm gonna say that I had spent years like dreaming and living for the idea of one day calling the Gulf of Mexico my home. I've always wanted to live there, and I thought that was just going to be the greatest thing ever. And we did, you know, the opportunity presented itself that we could move to the Gulf of Mexico, but Henry didn't like it there. He wasn't happy there, and he just never took to Florida the way I did. And when he wanted to come home, you know, it was something that I needed to do as well for him, because I couldn't have him down there being unhappy. So I guess in a way, and I'm not trying to sound like a martyr here, but I gave up my dream of living in the Gulf of Mexico to come home to make Henry happy. So I mean, that just really has to be the biggest thing for 2019. My favorite movie of the year? I don't know any movie that came out this year that I particularly loved. We don't watch a lot of like new movies. We don't go to the theater. So I guess I'm just gonna have to say The Mandalorian. We did watch that, and you know, Baby Yoda is life. So, favorite show of the year. Okay, so my favorite show of every year is The Walking Dead. I am a true diehard Deadhead, and not the Grateful Dead, but the Walking Deadhead. So, but this year I did discover American Horror Story, and I binge watched, like, I'm on season 4. So I will say American Horror Story is my favorite new find show of the year, but unquestionably The Walking Dead will always be my favorite show of the year until The Walking Dead is non-existent. Your most embarrassing moment of the year? You know, I don't know. I'm sure there were plenty, and it probably involved me going off on someone in a store about something that wasn't even their fault. I don't know. I have a tendency to have a quick temper and a low tolerance, so, but I can't think of anything specific. So we'll move on to the next one. The time you laugh the hardest. Okay, I laugh a lot, but 2019 overall really didn't give me a lot of moments to laugh. I mean, there was a lot of sadness throughout the year, and there was a lot of, like, just kind of stressful times throughout the year, but I do laugh, and I laugh the most when I'm around my brother. He's funny. We laugh a lot, and Henry and I laugh a lot about everything. So it would just probably have to be something me and Henry did. Something you learned to do or had never done before. Okay, that is going to be hurricane prepping. You see people on the news prepping for the hurricanes, and you think you know what they're doing, but until I literally had to experience that for myself and by myself, I had no clue what was involved with hurricane prepping, and that was definitely a big learning experience for me. Most newsworthy event. Would that be something for me? Like my most newsworthy event? Because I don't know anything big that happened in the news. I mean, the president's had a lot of controversy throughout the year, and that's pretty much been the news all year, but that's nothing to me. So my most newsworthy event was probably seeing Isla for the first time. My daughter and I, we have always wanted to visit Isla, and in August, when she spent the week with me and we had our whole week of beach touring, our Farewell to Florida tour, we went to the Florida Keys and we saw Isla, and that was the most amazing thing. The biggest lesson learned. I have to say, life is fluid. You make plans and you think you know, but you don't know, because we moved to Florida to be close to Ryan and Teresa, who decided they didn't want to stay in Florida. We were going to stay in Florida. The first opportunity to leave Florida that hit, Henry was gone. So life plans have been disrupted over and over this year. So, and you just have to adapt, and, you just have to go with it. And so I think the biggest life lesson is just that life is fluid. There is, like, until it's written on your headstone, nothing is concrete in life. And that is probably the biggest lesson. Excuse me. The favorite place you visited this year. Okay, so that has to go back to the Keys. Top of them is Isla, of course, but all the Keys were great. The Low-E Key, Bahia, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the big state park that we went and spent the day at was unbelievable. And Key West was it was so much fun. It's everything you would expect Key West to be. And so definitely the Florida Keys and Isla was the favorite place that I visited this year. Most memorable, most memorable moment or day of the year. And of course, that's going back to of everything that happened this year. And I've had some great things that happened throughout the year. But yeah, going to the Florida Keys was something that I'll never forget. The best advice you received from someone this year. You know, since I work from home, I don't work outside the home and interact with a lot of people. I don't have coworkers that I see every day anymore, and we never made friends in Fort Myers, so I didn't have anyone there, and I don't really have, even back in Georgia, anyone that I'm really around. But I listen to a lot of like motivational speakers and things, so I guess the best advice that I've heard this year was probably Rachel Hollis in the Made for More. Just that I'm made for more than I give myself credit for, and, you know, about limiting beliefs and overcoming limiting beliefs. So that's probably my best advice. An achievement you are proud of this year. Even though I didn't win NaNoWriMo, just the fact that I competed in NaNoWriMo and that I registered and I committed every day and I pushed myself to write those 50,000 words, that was the biggest achievement that I did for myself this year. Reminisce about one great compliment you received this year. Okay, so I'm one of those socially awkward people who we don't know how to take a compliment. We get really uncomfortable with compliments. So I can't really recall a specific compliment. But I guess the best compliment that I had this year, I got my annual performance evaluation at work. And it was probably one of the best evaluations I've ever had. My boss, you know, she talked about what an asset I am to the department and how I go above and beyond when I anticipate a need, how I am the first one to step up and offer to take action to address the need, and how I give up so much of my time on the weekends to cover the need for coverage that we have for the weekends. So honestly, just getting an evaluation like that is, you know, to a degree, that's a testament of my character and the core of who I am. And so having that kind of a high value on my evaluation report, to me, is like the highest compliment. And then last but not least, what or whom are you most thankful for this year? Well, I'm going to do a what and a whom. Whom easily is Henry. He loved his life in Cartersville. He loved our little house that we lived in by the lake. He loved his job. He loved everything about our whole life in Cartersville, but he was willing to give all of that up and go with me to Florida. Even though he hated Florida and bailed at the first chance anyone gave him to get out of there, he still gave everything up to go there for me. And I just appreciate that more than anything, because I have wanted to be in the Gulf of Mexico for years, and no one in my life has ever been willing to give up anything from their life to do that with me. And so I have to say that, you know, without question, I'm most thankful for Henry. And the what comes right back to that is I'm grateful that I got to see the Keys, because, you know, if I never see them again, at least I got to see them, and no one could ever take that away from me. But the what is really the whole I got to live in the Gulf of Mexico. You know, it's something I dreamed about for years, and for a whole year, that was my home and that was my life. And even though we're not there now, and I walked away from that, came back to Georgia. No matter what happens, for a brief moment in time, for a whole year, I got to live my dream, and that's more than a lot of people ever get to do. And so I'll always be grateful for that, and I'm very, very thankful that I had the opportunity to get to realize my dream and live in Florida for a year. So that was it. That was the 15 questions, that wraps up my whole year. And I would love, 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 love for you to do a review with me. If you want to, I can post the questions in the description box below. And I would love to hear how your year went. And what are you most thankful for this year? And how did your year go? Like, how do you sum up your year? So if you've made it to the end of this video, as always, thank you so, so, so much. And I hope that you have an absolutely amazing day. Bye.